The surprising finding was what happened with body fat levels. The high protein group lost a significant amount of body fat relative to baseline, not compared to the other group. The other group didn't lose hardly any body fat. But you think, okay, so they gained fat-free mass, muscle mass, they lost body fat. That's the definition of body recomposition, but they were eating nearly 300 more calories per day. So that's where it's like, so they lost fat while eating more calories.
Your 2018 female recomp study, where I believe it was a higher protein diet versus kind of a lower/moderate protein diet, and what the outcomes were.
Yeah, so you just described it as a body recomposition study, and retrospectively, we can call it that, but that's not how it was designed.
Okay.
But body recomposition is much more popular now, but it happened.
Yeah.
So what we did is we took resistance trained females, and in fact, they were aspiring physique athletes, almost all of them bikini competitors. All of our subjects had either competed previously or were planning to compete in the next year in some type of physique show. And I said all, nearly all, not every single one of them, but the majority, 80–90% had either already competed or were planning to compete in the next year. This was not a dieting study. In fact, our subjects were told, don't diet. The only thing we want you to do is manipulate your protein intake. Groups. We had one group, we said, you have to ingest at least 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So a pretty high amount. The other group, we said, you may not eat more than 1.2 grams per kg, which essentially we made this big difference in protein. So one group had to get at least this much or higher. The other group had to get no more than this or lower. And we had them train in my lab. So every rep, every set, every workout was supervised in my lab. I believe that study, we also had them do, it was a 4-day training split, 2 upper, 2 lower. And I think we had them do 2 days of high intensity interval training. I think up to like 4 or 6 sets. So not a ton of cardio, but a little bit. At the end of the study, the high protein group on average ingested 2.5 grams per kg. The low protein group only got to 0.9 grams per kg. So they did it. Imagine being assigned to that group, but they did a good job. So not surprisingly, the higher protein group, and by the way, I think before the study started, everybody was averaging about 1.4, maybe 1.5. So one group increased, the other group decreased. Mm-hmm. And which is exactly what we wanted to happen. Not surprisingly, the high protein group gained significantly more fat-free mass. It was like 4.5 pounds over the 8 weeks, which is a lot more than I would have thought. The low protein group didn't lose muscle mass on average. They had gained maybe like, a pound over that time. Now, I remember in our study, a third of them did lose fat-free mass or muscle mass. A third of them gained a little bit, and a third of them stayed about the same. But nobody in the high protein group lost or stayed the same. They had all gained. So that was just us saying, we think we know this about high protein with muscle mass. That study kind of confirmed it. The surprising finding was what happened with body fat levels. The high protein group lost a significant amount of body fat relative to baseline, not compared to the other group. The other group didn't lose hardly any body fat. But you think, okay, so they gained fat-free mass, muscle mass, they lost body fat. That's the definition of body recomposition, but they were eating nearly 300 more calories per day. So that's where it's like, so they lost fat while eating more calories. Now, subsequent research on my part, just looking at other things to help explain this, what I've come to realize is if you eat excess calories and you're a resistance training person, you don't put that on as body fat. I am not aware of a study in the scientific literature where overfeeding, as long as 2 conditions exist, As long as the excess calories are coming all from protein, and as long as you're resistance training, one of two things happens. You either do not gain body fat or you lose body fat. So there's this argument or this, this seed like high protein's good for just physique purposes, which we know that. I'm just now validating it in research studies. What else? The body comp, resting metabolic rate, we measured that. I don't remember there being there was not a big difference there, which you could almost be surprised. You would think that maybe there would be a big increase in the group that gained muscle mass. But no, that study was the first ever in resistance trained females demonstrating high protein is better than very low protein.